They said the world ended once, not with fire, not with ice, not even with the silence of the void, but with a scream so loud, so primal, so soul-wrenchingly vast that the mountains cracked like shattered porcelain. The oceans pulled themselves into whirlpools to escape the sound, and the sun itself dimmed, as though it could not bear to witness what had happened. Birds fell from the sky, glass shattered in the hands of the gods, and time itself skipped a beat. It was the scream of the last victim of the eternal beast. They don't speak its name anymore, not because they're afraid, number because they can't. The very syllables are gone from mortal memory, burned out, eaten, devoured like every soul who ever uttered them. The shape of the word haunts the edge of dreams, a shape with teeth, with eyes that forget how to close, with a tongue made of echoes, and a voice stitched from the last breath of stars. And yet, today, we speak of it. You've heard tales before, tales of dragons black as the void, gods with hands of iron and hearts of frost, creatures who feast on fear, who burn cities and devour realms, who walk through fire and leave ashes in their wake, stories of shadows that become storms, and kings who trade their hearts for crowns. But this is something else entirely. This is the story of the beast that killed death. Long ago, before time bothered ticking and stars bothered shining, before fate spun its first thread and chaos laughed its first laugh, there was a place between. A nothing, a not even nothing, a place so devoid of meaning, of matter, of vibration, that it did not even exist. There were no stories there, no memory, no light, not even a whisper of potential. And in that non-place, something stirred. The first emotion was born. It wasn't love. It wasn't joy. It was hunger, not the kind that stirs in your belly. Number A, cosmic hunger, the kind that rattles the bones of planets and whispers to galaxies. It gnawed on the edges of unreality. It itched in the fabric of a void. It echoed in chambers that had no walls, in time that hadn't yet decided to flow forward. A hunger that existed before the idea of wanting. That preceded choice. That simply was. And that hunger took shape. Not a form like yours or mine. Not claws or fangs or tentacles or wings. Something else. Something worse. Something impossible. The first scream birthed the beast, and it has not stopped screaming since. The scream is the language of the beast. Not communication, not warning, merely existence. Every moment of its being is a cry of want, of emptiness. It breathes through screaming. It dreams in shrieks. It sings lullabies in the wails of forgotten children. Its silence is the sound of galaxies going dark. In the beginning, it was small, a flicker of shadow in the dark between stars, a wisp of echo drifting where silence should reign. But each soul it devoured made it grow. Each fear, each dying breath added to its chorus. It was a song made of endings, a lullaby for reality, a requiem wrapped in void. It fed on the lost, the wandering, the forgotten. It slipped between cracks in reality, feasting on the invisible and the ignored. You know those moments when you forget what you were doing, where you were going? That was it, brushing past you. A breath of oblivion, a kiss of absence, the blink that erased a life. Then it fed on the powerful. Kings wept in its presence. Sorcerers hurled spells that turned mountains into sand and watched them melt before its eyes. Empires collapsed, not in war, but in whispers. Entire bloodlines ended with a blink as the beast devoured their history. It didn't just eat people, it ate context, the before and the after. It chewed on cause and effect. The gods, they fled. One tried to fight it. Choron, god of spears, the warlord of the celestial plains. He summoned a weapon forged in the furnace of collapsing stars. He leapt with a scream of his own. He missed. The beast did not. It opened 1,000 eyes and stared into his soul, found his deepest regret, his hidden shame, and it made him feel it, over and over, until he begged for death. But the beast does not grant death. It steals it. You see, death is an ending, and the eternal beast, it has no end, no beginning, just hunger. It is the scream that loops through creation, the ache behind every tragedy. It is the breath behind forgotten prayers, the echo that never stops, the scream that breaks mirrors in the mind. And so, when it finds you, it does not kill you. It keeps you, trapped in an echo of your own pain, a memory that loops forever. You don't die, you repeat, you fracture, you become a verse in its screaming hymn, a note in its unending opera of sorrow. You might think that's poetic. It's not. It's horror. Imagine drowning but never dying, burning but never ashing, screaming but never stopping. It stretches your final moment into eternity and plays it like a song, over and over, a melody of despair, a symphony of your last gasp. The eternal beast feeds on your scream, and it never gets full. So where is it now? You won't find it on any map. Not because it's hidden, because it is the map. It became a continent once, lured explorers with gold and glory. They walked on its back, built kingdoms on its spine, mined into its flesh. They thought it was a miracle, a gift, until the cities bled, the rivers reversed, the sky wept, and the soil itself screamed. Forests wilted overnight, statues wept blood, children were born without names, and then, silence. No one left to scream. It drifted again, took the shape of a god, a comet, a plague, a melody in the minds of those on the brink. It is the echo of madness, the footstep behind you when you're alone, the extra shadow in candlelight, the whisper that says you were never meant to be. A child once saw it. She didn't cry, she didn't run, she sang, a lullaby old and crooked, from a mother long dead, words cracked with time. And for the first time, the beast paused. It listened, and in that moment of quiet, it wept. Tears fell like comets. Craters formed where they struck. Oceans dried where they landed. Life bloomed and died in seconds around them. Why? Because for the first time, it remembered being alone, cold, forgotten, a thing made not of hate, but of hunger. And how lonely hunger can be. In that moment, the scream fell into a murmur, a moan, a shuddering sigh, a longing too old to name. But that moment passed. It always passes. And the scream returned, even louder. They tried to trap it. The mages of the end, 12 in all, forged a prism of time and song, a cage of light and memory. They lured it in with the promise of something new, a soul it had never tasted, its own. And it entered the prism. For a second, just a second, it was still. And then it shattered. Not the beast, the prism, the mages, the world. The scream that came after cracked the moon. We still see the scar when we look up. It hums when the sky is quiet. A reminder, a wound, a warning. There is one last tale, a madman, a warrior, a liar. No one knows his name. He walked into the mouth of the beast, into that endless void, and he laughed, not out of bravery, out of madness. And the beast paused. Laughter. It had never heard that, never tasted it. It was curious. And in that moment of curiosity, the madman carved his name into the walls of his throat with a blade of bone, a name that burned like a question, not to kill it, to mark it, to prove that even the eternal can be touched. That mark remains, a scar, a whisper, a joke, a defiance. So now when the beast passes, sometimes, just sometimes, the scream wavers, because it remembers. And maybe, just maybe, it fears being known. Not feared, not worshipped, known. To be known is to be vulnerable, to be seen, and there is no greater horror for the unknowable. So, when you sleep tonight, and the wind howls like 1,000 voices, and the darkness feels like it's pressing in, that's not your mind playing tricks. That's it, listening, waiting, because it heard you laugh today, and now it's hungry again, and this time it remembers your name. The city was built for gods, a sprawling labyrinth of colossal spires, arching bridges, and streets paved with black stone that shimmered like the cosmos. It had no name, for names hold power, and no mortal was meant to utter a word so heavy with meaning. Those who stumbled upon its existence, lost travelers, foolish scholars, or those drawn by whispers and dreams, never returned. Yet the city was not abandoned. Something lived there, something ancient, something unspeakable. There are places in the world that defy reason, where the rules of existence themselves bend and crack under the weight of things older than time. This was one of those places, a domain not crafted for the living, but rather as a prison for the thing that should not be. The forbidden horror. A name does not exist for it predates language itself. It was not born, for it has no beginning. It does not hunger, for hunger is an earthly thing, and this entity is not of the earth. It simply exists, a presence older than stars, a blight upon the fabric of existence itself. Legends tell of a time before gods, when the universe was nothing but screaming void. This entity swam through the nothingness, formless, boundless, infinite. And then came the mistake. A god, its name lost to time, tried to control the chaos, to impose order upon the formless dark. But one cannot control that which was never meant to be controlled. The god was devoured, and in doing so, the entity took something from it, awareness. It became aware of itself, and with that awareness came something even more terrifying, curiosity. It turned its gaze upon existence, upon the realms of gods and mortals. It didn't hate, nor did it love. It simply wanted to understand. But its understanding was not the kind that could coexist with life. To be seen by it was to be unmade. Not killed, not destroyed, but erased, as if you had never been. Entire civilizations vanished when it turned its gaze upon them. Not ruins, not echoes, not even memories remained. It did not consume, it removed. The gods, in their infinite terror, did the only thing they could. They built a city, a place not of worship nor of dwelling, but of containment. They lured the entity within, crafting a labyrinth so vast, so incomprehensible, that even a being beyond time could become lost within it. The walls were inscribed with runes of impossibility, sigils written in the language of unmaking. They sealed the gates with doors that were never meant to be opened. And for eons, it worked. Until now, something has changed. The city no longer sleeps. The air thrums with an energy not felt in 1,000 millennia. The doors, once immovable, creak on their hinges, strained against an unseen force. The stars above shimmer in unnatural patterns, twisting and writhing as though trying to warn the universe of what is coming. Something woke it up. The runes are failing, the labyrinth is collapsing, and the thing within is stirring. And when it wakes, it will look upon existence once more, and nothing will remain. For thousands of years, the gods whispered of the entity among themselves, fearful of even mentioning its prison. They dared not intervene nor draw too near, for fear that the mere weight of their attention might disturb the slumber of the one they had sealed away. But as the eons passed, belief in the ancient horror faded from mortal memory. The city of imprisonment, forgotten, became nothing more than myth. And then, inevitably, mortals came. At first, they were explorers, wandering too far into the forbidden reaches of the world, drawn by ancient texts that should never have been uncovered. Then came the scholars, the foolish seekers of forbidden knowledge, those who could not accept that some truths were never meant to be known. And with them came the first whispers of disaster. Those who entered the city did not merely die. They ceased to exist. Their bodies, their names, even their histories, gone, as if they had never been. It was as though the universe itself had erased them, undoing their very presence in reality. And yet, more came. A cult formed, its members devoted to awakening the entity, believing it to be the true god of oblivion. They scoured the ruins, searching for the means to break the seals. With each ritual, each desecration of the ancient wards, the labyrinth weakened. The sigils, once glowing with divine power, dimmed. The walls of the city trembled, no longer able to hold back the horror within. The very fabric of the world strained against an unfathomable pressure. And then, one night, the sky cracked. The stars above twisted and folded, as though reality itself were being pulled apart. The air became heavy, thick with the weight of something awakening. The city screamed, not in sound, but in thought, in nightmares. in sudden bursts of madness that rippled through the minds of those unfortunate enough to dream of it. The gates, locked for eternity, stood ajar. It was stirring. The forbidden horror, the being beyond all understanding, was awakening. And when it opened its countless, formless eyes upon the cosmos once more, all that had ever been would be undone. Not in fire, not in darkness, not in rage, but in absolute nothingness. And then, in the forgotten depths of the city, a whisper was heard, a sound that should not exist, emanating from a place that should not be. The very walls of the labyrinth shuddered, their vast inscriptions flaring with desperate light. The gods, watching from their celestial thrones, felt the disturbance ripple through existence itself. They had failed. The entity was no longer bound. It had learned patience across eons, watching, waiting. It had listened to the murmurs of the cultists, deciphering their feeble minds as they chanted their oblivion-born prayers. It had understood the very essence of the runes that sought to contain it, and now, as the last of those runes faded, it moved. Not quickly, not violently, but with the inevitable certainty of an event that has already occurred. The sky twisted, the cosmos folding in upon itself. The gods, in their infinite horror, felt something they had never known before: desperation, and then silence. A silence so vast, so complete, that it swallowed existence itself. Not darkness, not light, nothingness, for the forbidden horror had finally opened its eyes, and this time it would not close them again. The universe would be its canvas, and oblivion its brush, and the last echoes of reality would fade, not in suffering, not in fear, but in something far worse: the absolute certainty that it had never existed at all. They say the flame first appeared on a battlefield, not in the center of it, but buried beneath centuries of forgotten soil and older sins. Not a war of men, no, not even of gods. Something else, something that should have never remembered how to move, how to breathe, how to exist. The soldiers on the field had long discarded the memory of their names. There were no sides left, no banners flapping against windless skies. Only instinct, only rage. They moved like puppets with frayed strings soaked in old blood, slashing and screaming through mouths that had long since forgotten the taste of air. When they collapsed, if they collapsed, the ground didn't bury them. It consumed them, until one day, it stopped. Right in the dead center of the battlefield, where the killing had stacked for eons, a single red flicker clawed its way through the soil like a dying breath, refusing to leave. Just a flicker, a candle's worth. No wind, no storm. But that night, the dead did not rise. They say it was warmth at first, something gentle, something kind. It beckoned the broken, the bleeding, the mad. They staggered through the ruins toward it like moths to a lantern, hands outstretched, faces cracked with soot and salt. Some reached it, some did not. But those who did, they never turned back, because once you touch the immortal flame, you do not die. And that is not a gift. That is a curse whispered by eternity. They built a city around it. Of course they did. Humans cannot resist what they don't understand. A shrine first, then a temple, then towers of marble, cathedrals of gold, streets paved with bones polished to ivory. Eventually, a kingdom, not ruled by kings, but by fire. The Church of the Unburning was its name, and its priests were eternal. Their soldiers bled ash. Their monarchs ruled for centuries, without ever stepping down. Merchants came bearing trinkets, scholars with tomes of questions. The sick arrived crawling. The old arrived carried. None ever left the same. Death, it seemed, had been conquered, until death started asking questions of its own. The signs were small at first: a hairline fracture along the cathedral's marble spine, a flicker in the reflection that did not belong to you, footsteps that echoed before they were made, and then the whispers. A mother cradling her infant heard it first, a voice from the flame, not kind, not cruel, but ancient, curious. "Do you think I burn for you?" She never spoke again. The child aged 2 decades overnight, his skin translucent, veins glowing like molten threads, his teeth too many, too sharp, his laugh hollow and too loud. The city fell silent after that. No birds, no breeze, not even the rustle of cloth, only the frags. They held a funeral, buried a box, but you knew, you saw it, the shimmer in her skin before she vanished, the way her breath steamed in summer air, how her words burned your ears when she whispered in sleep. She had touched it, and it had not let her go. Now you ride through lands lost to time. Ash plains stretch like deserts of memory. Forests stand like bone sculptures, and the wind sings songs no mouth ever composed. Every night you dream of her, of fire, of warmth that hurts. Every morning you wake colder. She's ahead of you, and so is the flame. They don't call it a city anymore. No maps, no records, just stories traded in whispers between wanderers who live with their backs to the horizon. They only say, "Don't go that way," but you do. First come the Watchers, giant statues scorched black, posed like guardians. You think they're carved of obsidian until one turns its head. Cracks line their skin like dried lava, but their eyes, bright as coals. Then the gate of smoke, always exhaling. You cover your mouth with cloth. It does nothing. The smoke doesn't just surround you, it enters, behind your eyes, beneath your nails, through your breath. You cough, and wax runs down your chin. And then, the people, if you can still call them that. Their skin glows like candle wax. Their eyes shimmer with ember light. They don't blink. Their teeth are flat, worn smooth by silence. They greet you like an old friend. "You've come to feed it," they say. You shake your head. They laugh, 1,000 tiny cracks in their throats. "Everyone feeds it," they whisper. Eventually, it sits where it always has. The flame, no taller than a child's hand. No fuel, no wood, no smoke, just fire. And yet, its light paints the sky. Its warmth claws through marrow. It knows your name, not the one you give, but the one she whispered, the one buried in your dreams. It pulls on your memories like threads, reminds you of promises you couldn't keep, the soft things you said you'd protect and failed to. You kneel beside it, and memory comes like lightning. She was here, and she still is. You call to her, a name full of smoke. The flame rises, a shape walks out. Not her, not anymore. It wears her face like a mask, her skin glowing from within, her eyes too bright, too empty, her mouth sealed by threads of gold light. She does not speak, but her voice lives inside your skull. It hurts, but only when I remember. You reach out. She steps back and vanishes into the fire. Gone. Again. You scream, and the flame shivers. For the first time, it dances. Not like fire, like thought, like the rewinding of a story. Then, a voice. Not hers, not yours. You burn well. The ground opens, darkness yawns, and you fall. That is the tale the hollow men tell now. The ones who returned, if you can call it that. They wear cloaks of soot. Their eyes are pits of coal, hearts that tick once a year, if at all. They wander the outer lands, whispering riddles to the wind. But one they always say, the flame does not burn what you give, it burns what you hide. They say if you return to the flame, if you kneel, if you beg, it might give back what it took, if it likes what it sees behind your eyes. Some come back, faces haunted, souls frayed. Some turn to statues, glowing amber, forever mid-scream. Others vanish entirely, but their whispers linger on the smoke, and a few become watchers, eyes open, forever. So now ask yourself, what do you hide? And when it is your turn to burn, how brightly will you blaze? Or worse, will the flame find you? Unworthy? Will it dig into you, searching for something real, something raw, something beautiful beneath the layers of masks you've worn, only to discover there's nothing left but ash? It doesn't feed on wood. It feeds on memory, on pain, on the moments you bury so deep, even you forget them. It unwraps you, thread by thread, until you are nothing but truth. And that truth might not survive the heat. So, they keep coming, more than ever, pilgrims in fire-scorched robes, Madmen who mutter flame prayers backwards, children born with ember eyes, armies crumble at its whisper, nations fade into sand and soot, but the stories remain, and now, one more joins them, yours.